So, if anything from the past week to go by, this is probably quite funny, but it also once again shows you the Brexiteers have no real clue of what they're doing, because we apparently voted to be a sovereign state, an independent one, to be able to make our own rules and laws. Yet, by the looks of it, Donald Trump has basically said you've got to sack that ambassador, and we have apparently done so. Well, at least Boris was ultimately certainly going to do so, and I'm pretty much resigned to the fact now that Boris will become Prime Minister. Hopefully, the shortest-lived Prime Minister in history, which will be quite funny, but that's another thing for another time, I think. But this one comes from Martin Kettle, and it's Kim Darroch. Kim Darroch has resigned. Now Britain risks becoming a vassal of the US. The Chief of Britain's Foreign Office does nothing casually. Does nothing carelessly, shall I say. He is a past master at saying nothing unintended in public. So when the Foreign Office Permanent Secretary Simon MacDonald went before MPs this lunchtime after the devastating resignation of Britain's Washington ambassador Kim Darroch, his indecipher's directness was a revolution. It was the most eloquent evidence possible that the Darroch affair is not just a diplomatic storm, but an existential challenge to Britain's entire foreign policy. What precedent was there? The Foreign Affairs Committee chair, Tom Tugendhat, asked MacDonald straight off, for the head of state, a friendly government, to do what Donald Trump has done this week and make it impossible for Britain's senior representative in that country to do his job. MacDonald's answer was monosyllabic, crisp and explosive. None, he said. Labour's Chris Bryant followed up. Surely there were precedents from unfriendly countries such as Venezuela. I know of none, MacDonald replied. Again, not even hostile states have behaved like Trump, he insisted. Had there been some distant occasion when a British ambassador fell foul of the White House in such a way? There was, MacDonald admitted, a difficulty in 1856 when President Franklin Pierce accused the British ambassador of recruiting Americans to fight in the Crimean War. The listeners in the committee room 16 laughed, but MacDonald did not. And then came in many ways the most extraordinary remark of the lot. Quote, "Nothing like this has ever happened before," MacDonald told another MP. "There must be consequences. What they are in detail, I cannot tell you this afternoon." I've known MacDonald a long time. He was in the Washington embassy when The Guardian posted me there during the Bill Clinton presidency. Later, he worked for the Foreign Secretary Jack Straw, based in London. More recently, he has been Britain's ambassador in Berlin and is an authoritative analyst of German politics and policy. For the past 4 years, he has been at the head of the diplomatic service in London. MacDonald is empirically not an old-school British diplomat. He's a bit of an outsider, modern, approachable, and fiercely loyal to his staff and colleagues. Getting a story out of MacDonald is one of the hardest journalistic tasks I have ever encountered. I've never heard him talk in the public the way he did yesterday. It tells you that there is something really serious going on. He is not just angry. He's looking into the abyss into which the British post-war worldview is sliding. Darroch was brought down by 3 people. The first was the leaker of the successive critical memos from the Washington embassy, who gave them to one of Britain's most effective pro-Brexit journalists. The second was President Trump, who followed up on the leaks with a fusillade of personal insults and punitive actions of his own, which brought Darroch to the brink. And the third was Boris Johnson, who knowingly refused to express confidence in his own potential ambassador during Thursday's ITV leadership hustings. which Jeremy Hunt, it was Johnson's actions that led directly to his inevitable resignation. Each of these requires us to pause and digest the implementations of this. First, consider the leaker. This must have been either a senior insider, a politician or diplomat with access to highly classified material. Alternatively, it may have been an outside job, a hack or an intercept, possibly by the agent of a state bent on mischief. Either way, these options are devastating for the public devastating for the practicality of diplomatic cables in the modern era. They are a reminder too of the extent which Brexit subverts the workings of the British state. There's been nothing like it for an alternatively loyal since the Soviet era spies of the Cold War. Second, consider Trump. He didn't have to turbocharge the leak. He will have had someone around him who tried to stop him, but he didn't. But he did it once, and then he did it again. These were knowing acts, deliberately instigations designed to weaken a country that thinks of itself and is still often seen, as in Washington, as America's special ally. They are a willful assertion of power over Britain, an attempt to fire and hire Britain's envoy. It was a crude act with implementations for any country that seeks alliance with America or indeed any global power. Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin have been watching approvingly. For Britain, though, it is a stake through the heart of its entire post-war self-image. Finally, consider Johnson. Though he has mainly been in hiding while the Brexiteers' coup against Theresa May works itself through the Tory party to benefit Johnson, Johnson's ITV debate, however, exposed once again a politician who can rival Trump for self-centered and ruthless optimism. Thursday reminded us that in Johnson's world, other people are always expendable. Ask the former London police chief Ian Blair, sacked by Johnson in one of the most disgraceful acts of mayoralty. Ask Ian's prisoner, Nazim Ratcliffe, innocent victim of Johnson's lazy mind and incontinent tongue. Now ask Dorrock, who Johnson casually hung out to dry. Each of them simply got away. If Johnson becomes Prime Minister, there will be more, much more of this. In the end, though, the Dorrock affair is not just about personalities, but more importantly about policy. For the past 3 years, Britain's ministers from May down have tried to treat Trump as a temporarily difficult to work around with a pretense of friendship, while deeper institutional links and common interest with America endure. Once Trump goes, they believe, they can press the reset button and can quickly return to the status quo of supposedly these special relations. Yet it's increasingly hard to take this view seriously. Too much is changing on too many fronts. Trumpism may not be temporary. He may well be re-elected next year, as Dorrock himself pointed out in a memo. The underpinnings of Trumpism in a shape of the populist nationalism and contempt for other countries' alliances and accords go much deeper, both for the US and in Brexit Britain. If Johnson or another Brexiteer leader gets his way, Britain may once again embrace the US, but the America they embrace will not be the outward-looking republic of presidents from Eisenhower to Obama, but an inward-looking exceptionalist country that seeks to disrupt everything about the international order. In such a world, Britain risks becoming a vassal of a callous, unilateralist state. Johnson or his successor would be Britain's Carrie Liam to Washington's Xi Jinping. This is a new world, and there are no precedents. Britain's post-war belief that it is a unique bridge between Europe and the US is more rickety now than ever. The Brexiteers are set on destroying one end of the bridge. Trump is equally bent on blowing up the other. As the bridge begins to collapse, so does the transatlantic foreign policy that Dirac and so many others have battled so hard to sustain. As Simon MacDonald put it today to the Foreign Affairs Committee, there will be consequences. There certainly will, and none will be good ones.